Hello everybody, it's Professor Reach. One way I could take that is I could go, oh, people don't like me because I seem like I'm from Liverpool. So today I'm going to talk about something a little interesting. This was caused by a student that I got recently, and this student had quite an interesting request, not completely out of the ordinary, but certainly not that common. And that is that they wanted to change their accent. And this student in particular had a kind of Germanic accent, sort of Scandinavian/German. And I wanted to know why, because when someone says they want to adopt a different accent or something like that, and it's not related to an issue with other people understanding them, but it's more about the stigma or perception of that accent. So when I hear that, I want to know the reason behind it. And this very story demonstrates why. Now, the reason was that this student had received some negativity because of the way that they sound. This negativity had come from a British native over the phone who said they wanted to speak to someone who could speak English. Now, I spoke to this student. They had amazing English, like C1 at least, so advanced, right? They can speak really good English. So this was not about the English. This was about someone getting frustrated and taking it out on someone else on the phone. And this left a negative impression with this student. And they thought, well, it's because I sound like a foreigner, so that needs to change. So, what do I think about that? Okay, first, let me say, if a student does want to achieve a standardized accent, that's great. When I learned Spanish, the last thing I wanted was to sound like an Englishman speaking Spanish. I did not want to go into a pub and be like, quiero una cerveza, por favor. It's not a good look. So I really wanted to use a Spanish standard for my accent and pronunciation. All right? So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting that. It's a difficult aim, but if it's something that you feel passionate about, you want to sound a certain way, go for it. And I encourage it, and even I have videos about how to do it. However, in this video, I'm going to make the case for why you don't have to. I'm not saying that you mustn't, or that even you shouldn't aim for a standard variety accent like British, RP, or standard American. I'm saying that it is your choice. It's the choice of the student. And additional information, many non-native accents sound very pleasant. I really like the French accent in English. I think it sounds wonderful. Many non-native accents sound pleasant. How accents sound is very much a matter of opinion. Some people really don't like British, and we're going to talk about that. So, I'm going to give you some reasons now why you don't have to change your accent, all right? Number one, some people are nasty. No matter what happens, some people are going to be nasty. They might be in a bad mood, and they might just be taking it out on you, or they might just be a bad person who takes out their problems on other people. I had an experience, and I'll tell you about this. This was just 1 year ago. I was at the train station in Leicester, and a guy comes up to me. He might have been a bit drunk. I couldn't tell. It was the daytime. And he had a football top on, and he started punching his football top. And immediately I thought, this is a bit odd. And there weren't many people around. There were security cameras, but not many people around. And, you know, when people see trouble, you know, they don't really like to get involved. So he comes up and he started saying some things to me, and I sort of tried to ignore him, but he appeared to get a bit offended by that. And he got to the point where he said, "Where are you from?" Now, I don't think he could tell where I was from my accent, because my accent is very general Northern English now. So he couldn't tell what part of England I was from. And I told him, I just said, "I'm from Liverpool." I actually thought it might diffuse the situation a little bit. I don't know why I thought that. It did end the conversation, actually. It did end it, because what happened next is he said, "Well, why don't you back to Liverpool?" And you can insert the words that he said kind of in the middle there. And he said it, he kind of made this sort of gesture. And then he turned around and walked off. Okay? And I put my headphones back in and went back to listening to music and waiting for my taxi from the train station. Okay? Now, I could take that many different ways, right? One way I could take that is I could go, "Oh, people don't like me because I seem like I'm from Liverpool. Maybe I need to extinguish the Liverpool from my accent, right? Maybe I shouldn't tell people that I'm from Liverpool." Of course, that's nonsense. Really, that's just either a bad person or a person who was having a really bad day or someone who was just looking for trouble, right? And there are people like that in the world. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your accent. So you should definitely not take a situation like that and start thinking, "Oh God, there's something about me that isn't right." All right? Number 2, some people dislike the standards. Some people don't like received pronunciation. Some people think it sounds snooty, it sounds too posh. It sounds like you're looking down on someone. Some people don't like standard American. They think it sounds cheesy. It sounds like a McDonald's businessman. You know? Lots of people don't like different accents. You know? It's very much a personal opinion. And I've had people who say, "Wow, I love your accent." And I've had other people who are kind of like, "Why do you sound like that? Why do you sound like that? So stiff," you know? It's very much a matter of opinion. So you could be if you're aiming for a standard because of what other people think, not sure it's a good idea. Not sure it's a good idea. All right, number 3. Accent is actually a part of yourself. The way that you speak really does influence how you think, how you act, your own emotions. It really does, right? And people talk about this. It's not all negative, this, because people talk about it and they say, you know, "I'm kind of a different person when I speak Spanish," or "I'm kind of a different person when I speak Japanese. You know, I'm kind of a different person in these other languages." Cool. That can give you another element of yourself. But what you have to realize is, if you're changing your accent, the intonation, the sounds, all kinds of elements of it, it will change to some extent. It will change you, right? Like, if you really go for that, if you go for like that university professor, you know, or even like a lord accent, you know, that kind of like, "Ladies and gentlemen, here today, we are going to discuss the new legislation," right? Or whatever. You go for that really kind of way of talking, then you might start to feel a bit superior, you know? You might start to feel like you're a higher class as well, you know? And that might not be a good thing. You might start to look down on people who don't have a nice lordy accent, you know? You have to consider that. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily the case. There's a fantastic example of a guy called Tony Benn, has one of the best lordy accents in the world, and he was such a humble and modest guy as well. So it doesn't have to be like that. But it can. It can be like that. It does change you when you change the way you speak. All right. Number 4. The standards are idealistic. The standards don't actually exist in reality. They're kind of in our heads, right? It's like the perfect straight line. You know, no line is perfectly straight. Well, there is no such thing actually as received pronunciation. It's just an approximation that differs from person to person, right? So why do standards exist? Or why do they exist? Why were standards created? Standards came to be in order to allow larger communities to effectively communicate. And English is the best example because the British Empire spread English all over the place, and all these places wanted to effectively communicate, so they had this standard English that they taught, and they showed people these standardizations, okay? But in its natural form, language doesn't have a standard. Standard is something that we put on it for pragmatic reasons. We put a standard on the language in order to enable communication across more people. You know, I mean, it gets a little difficult if we're all spelling words a different way, right? Which is actually how languages, including English, were just a few hundred years ago. People would spell words all different ways. You had to sort of work out what they were trying to say. Okay? So, something to consider. That if you're aiming for a standard, you are actually aiming for something synthetic that's being put on to language. The ultimate goal is always communication. That's what we want. Communication. Now, a standard can help you be more effective at communication. And that's actually the purpose of standards. So, that's the other side to that. What's the summary of all this? What does it all come down to? Well, what it comes down to is the important factor is you. Does it bother you how you sound? If it does, maybe you can change it. Also, you need to accept your kind of biological limits and how you sound, right? We can't all sound like Morgan Freeman. Right? We can't all have that deep, you know, American, like, narrative accent, all right? Particularly, you know, if you're a lady with a very high-pitched voice, then I think using Morgan Freeman as a model is a bad idea. Now, that's an extreme example, but you get the idea. There are limitations, all right? Biological limitations. However, there is a lot of variety as well, a lot of potential to change how you sound. You have to use a realistic standard, that's all. So, I hope that's been helpful, everybody. If you've got this far in the video, please do leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts, let me know what you'd like to have a video on in the future. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Professor Rich, and I will catch you later.